Hi everyone, Gareth here at QC Tech, and today I'm bringing you episode 2 in my little mini-series talking about XCP-ng, which is an open source hypervisor. Today we're looking at downloading the ISO, getting the ISO onto a memory stick, booting and installing XCP-ng. There's a couple of things that are not necessarily just standard, next operation bits that I do, so I'll go through those and just explain why I'm doing that. And then we'll get right to the point where we've got Xen Orchestra installed as a virtual machine. So Xen Orchestra is the first VM that you really want to install. It allows you to then manage your XCP-ng server or servers. So it's the first VM you want to get installed anyway. So with all of that said, let's just go and have a quick look at the video series plan, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so here we go. This is the series XCP-ng from scratch. Episode 1 was just looking at what the plan was really and the hardware that I'm going to be using. We're on episode 2 now, which is installation, downloading the ISO, creating a memory stick, installation, setup, and getting XOA. Xen Orchestra application is the XOA. Getting that up and running. So. Yeah, let's crack on with the first thing in that list, which is getting it downloaded and then getting it onto a memory stick. Okay, so this is the XCP-ng website. Nice and easy to find. It's xcp-ng.org. As soon as you get here, you'll see there's some stats here about how many times it's been downloaded and forum contributions and all that sort of stuff. There's a nice download button here. If you click that, it just takes you a bit further down on the page. So click the button or just scroll through, and you'll see you can grab the ISO from here. It then even gives you the command to run in Linux to actually write that out to a memory stick. It suggests that if you're on Windows to use Rufus, which is also what I'd recommend. I'll grab some footage of me just doing this on Rufus as well, and just paste that in a second or two. And then it also gives you the SHA-256 hash for the file as well, so if you want to just verify that it's downloaded properly, you can do. I don't tend to bother with that, to be honest with you. If it downloads and then boots, then it's probably going to be alright. I'm not actually going to download it right here and right now because we're on a 4G connection here and it's a little bit slow, but I did go and grab it yeah, a couple of weeks ago now, because I started doing this video a couple of weeks ago, got sidetracked, didn't finish it, so I'm finishing it off again now. So let's get this onto a memory stick. So I have here memory stick that, in the interest of being good and organised, is already labelled up so we know what it is. I'm going to chuck that into this machine here in a second, but what I'm just going to do first, so over on the console here I'm going to do an lsblk. So this is going to list all the block devices that are on the system. You can see there's all the snaps here, which is the snap package management system for all the stuff that I've got running, and there's SDA, which is the internal hard drive on the machine that I'm recording all of this on. So if we then plug the memory stick in, run that command again, you can now see that we have SDB has appeared. So we can be fairly sure that SDB is our memory stick. The command we're going to run to drop this onto the memory stick is dd. if is the input file, so we're saying input file equals downloads, and then the ISO xcp-ng-8.2.0.iso. We're then going with OF equals, and that's the output file, and that's going to be the device of our memory stick, so dev sdb. Double check you've got that right. You do not want to accidentally overwrite the XCP-ng ISO over your internal hard drive. That would be bad. There's then a few options that you can add on the end here. So BS equals is always a good one. I don't think it really matters what you select here. Some places say 4, some places 8. 32's a fairly good one that I tend to stick with, but put something in here. Block size of 32 megabytes. That's how many bytes or how much data it's going to read in between each write. There will be an optimum amount for your system and that particular memory stick or that particular ISO. But to be honest, tuning that out takes longer than actually just writing the image with a with a bad block size. But put 4, 8 or 32 in there because that will definitely help. We're also going to say conv, so conv equals fsync, and fsync forces the write operation to be handled synchronously. So when you get the command prompt back to say that it's finished writing, it will have actually finished writing. It doesn't give you the command back before it's actually finished writing all the data out. So that's useful. I would also say that we probably want to go with a having a complete mental blank now. Status equals progress. Again, that's just so that you get some time and information out to the console, so you can see roughly where it is on the write process. If we have a look here, we can see that the image is only just shy of 600 meg, so it just gives us an idea of where we're at. So we'll hit, just double check that command, and we'll hit go. Oh, there we go. We also need to, if you're doing this from one file to another file, you don't need to run this sudo, but because we're writing out to a block device, because we're writing out to /dev/sdb, we do need to be root to do this. So password in there. Okay, so there we are. We can see that's written out. If you want belt and braces, you can also just run a sync. Again, that just flushes all of the disk write caches out, just to be on the safe side. And then we'll pull that. So we now have our ISO written out to memory stick. Okay, so just very quickly, looking at doing this on a Windows box, we're going to head to the Rufus website, which is rufus.ie, rufus.ie. So if you head there, scroll down a little bit and you'll find the download area. So downloading 3.13, which is the current version as of the recording of this video, and it's 1 and a bit meg, 1.1 megs, so not very big at all. And then double click Rufus. It's going to ask you for admin permissions here. Okay, enter your admin details. Do you want to check for updates? Yes, I do. Okay, and then we're in. So first job is just to double check that it's got the correct memory stick. It will only show removable devices in this list. It won't show you all of your disks. So if you've only got the one memory stick in, then you can be fairly sure that's the right one. We're then going to hit the select button here to pick our ISO, which most of my ISOs are sitting on my TrueNAS. So we'll select XCP-ng 8.2.0. Again, that's the current version as of the recording of this video. There's a few options here which really you just want to leave as they are, but you can select GPT if you know that you need to. Otherwise, leave it at MBR, and you can also select if there are options, you could select those in there, but we'll leave those as they are and hit the go button. We want to write the ISO in image mode, and yes, we're sure, and yes, it's going to destroy everything. Okay, so there we are. You can see that that's now finished. So using the magic of video editing, we'll now go back to me about a week and a half ago, before I recorded this video, talking about the rest of the process from a Linux side of things. Okay, next job is to get this plugged into the server. Server sitting just down there. I will chuck this in. We'll switch across onto the correct view for the HDMI input onto my recording box here. First thing I've actually got to do is just go into the BIOS, or go into the RAID configuration and make a new mirror for the primary disk. I've just fitted 2 SSDs to this with some drive adapters that I 3D printed. So I just need to set those up first, and then we'll get this installed onto them. Okay, now it's going to be a little bit noisy because obviously I've got this noisy server running next to me, but we're just going to hit space there to show the option ROM messages, and then F8 in a second to get into the RAID configuration. Okay, so we're going to create a logical drive. Yes, we want both of those disks. We want, calls it 1 plus north, which I've never quite understood, but yeah, that's fine. Okay, F8, it's saving, enter, and okay, so we've got a two 240 disks in there, so they're mirrored, and then we have 4 2 terabyte Western Digital RE4 disks in there that are in a RAID 5 array, giving us 6 terabytes of storage space. That says it's recovering. I'm not entirely sure why. I guess that's probably because I was shuffling disks around whilst whilst I was putting the 2 SSDs in. So I'm assuming that's just as a result of that. But we'll keep an eye on that just in case anything happens. So escape a couple of times. Okay, and we're going to go with F11 here to overwrite the default boot order, and it's normally option 3, I think. Yeah, option 3, boot from USB key. If you just leave the keyboard alone, that will automatically start booting, and this will get us into the install process. Okay, we are into the ncurses based setup. So I'm going to go with, don't really know whether that matters at this point, it's only for setup I think, but we'll go with English UK there anyway. Yep, what do we want to do? We want to carry on. Checking for existing products. Hopefully it's not going to find any, on the grounds that we've just made that RAID array with those disks. Now, those disks probably did have something on them that I haven't wiped yet, but you can see it's asking which disk do we want as our primary disk. Please select the disk you would like to install XCP-ng on disks with insufficient space are not shown. So that's fine. We want SDA, which is the 2 SSDs. Obviously, you do have the option there to software RAID. So if you don't want to use the hardware RAID that's built in with your system, or if you don't have hardware RAID, you can set software RAID up at that point. Okay, now this is one where I'm going to answer something that's a little bit strange, probably. Which of the disks would you like to use for virtual machine storage? I'm going to say none at this point. If you say that you want to use that disk, the way XCP-ng sets that up by default, I'm not a massive fan of the way it does that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say nothing. Once it's booted, I'm going to create a partition where we're going to store ISOs for local ISO storage, and then we'll make another partition which will be the remainder of the disk that we'll actually use for the VM storage, as well as setting up the 6 terabyte array as well for data storage. We are going to tick this box here that says use ext instead of LVM for local storage. So that's going to use what they call file-based, which it says might be slower. I don't think there's much in it, honestly. The big advantage is that it only actually provisions the amount of disk space that's in use. So you can specify a 2 terabyte hard drive. If you only copy 100 meg of data onto it, it's only going to take 100 meg of disk space. Now, ordinarily that's a little bit dangerous because you need to make sure you don't You've got to make sure you don't over-provision your disks. But the big advantage is when you're doing backups, when you're doing move operations, if you need to move a disk from a virtual disk from one storage medium to another, it only has to copy 100 meg. It doesn't have to copy the entire 2 terabyte disk, which if you use thick provisioning, it would have to. So massive advantage there. Far outweighs the potential slight speed difference that I don't think actually exists. So yeah, so we're not going to use anything, but what we are going to use, we're going to use ext, and we're going to say OK. You didn't select any disks, are you sure? Yes. Where would you like to use the select the source of the installation media? So we're going with the local media. I have had situations where I've got memory sticks or setups where it doesn't really like the local stuff. You can select FTP there and it will just download it all for you, as long as you've got an active internet connection. We're going to skip verification because I'm happy that this is all correct and present. Chuck your password in. My super secret password. We've got, so as you can see there, we've got 4 network cards in this machine. So there's two on board, and then there's an add-in card with an additional 2 ports in. So my plan is that actually I'm going to set up what is coming up here as ETH0 as the management interface. We'll get everything set up with that. We will then use the add-in card, which is ETH2 and 3 here. We'll get those into a bond. We'll bond that together to double up the amount of bandwidth we've got available, and we'll leave ETH1 as spare for now. But we'll do that in a later episode. So for now, we're just selecting ETH0. We'll leave it on DHCP. The port that it's plugged into is untagged, so it's untagged on our internal LAN, so that's fine. We will specify the host name. This is called vhost99. Where are we? We are in Europe. You can use the first letter to skip through the list here. So E, you can't do EU because the U takes you to US. But if you type E, that gets me to Europe, and then we'll go with L for London. I'm not in London, but it's close enough. We're going to use NTP. NTP is going to come from my DHCP server, and we're going to hit install.
Frequently attacks do happen from within. Matter of fact, outside of the garbage world of Sonic Wall and their disaster,
Okay, so that was about, I don't know, 5-6 minutes there, not too long. Would you like to install any supplemental packs? I don't actually know what the supplemental packs are. I'm going to say no. I've never needed one yet. Okay, and that was another kind of 6 or so minutes there. Just if you're keeping track of the timing, so kind of 15 minutes to do the install. So it's now saying please remove local media from the drive and press enter to reboot. So I will grab the media from the drive. There it is, and we'll reboot. Okay, so you saw the initial boot screen there. There were a few options. If you just leave it alone, we will boot into first install of XCP-ng. Okay, and there we are. We're logged on. It's all there and ready. So the next step in a couple of seconds is going to be just to configure a few bits on the hard drive. So we'll crack on with that in a second or two. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to SSH onto the box. Now, because we have all of this planned out and because I have DHCP reservations in, I already know that the IP address of this server is 172.16.132. Okay, there we go, and we're going to lsblk. So what you can see there is that we've got SDA and SDB, sorry, I was just there in a strange order, not quite sure why they're in that order. So SDA is the primary, that's the boot disk, that's the one, the mirror that we've installed onto. We have two 18 gig partitions, that's the current and backup installation. There's a gig held over for swap. We've got log partition, which is 4 gig, and then there's a 512. I'm not entirely sure what's in that one, but there's that one there as well. So first thing we want to do is make a new partition on the disk. So we're going to go fdisk. We're going to print this out just to check what's going on. N for new. Partition number 4 is missing, but let's go 7. Let's go next one up. Yeah, first sector is, we're just going to press enter there because that default is correct. I was just checking that the 870335856 is the next one up from the end of the swap. So if you look at the swap, that ends on 855, so 856 is the next one. We're then going to say plus, and this is a little bit subjective at this point, this is going to be our storage for ISOs for installation of virtual machines. So it sort of depends how many VMs you're going to put on this, how many ISOs you think you're going to need, whether you want them all sitting there for just in case. We've got a bit of spare on this drive, so I think I'm going to say let's give it 60 gig. So we're going to go plus 60 G. Okay, so you can see there we now have partition 7 is 60 gig. We're going to have another new partition. This one's going to be number 8. We're going to start at the end of the 60 gig one that we've just made, and we're going to just hit enter again here, but just to accept the default, which is the end of the disk. Okay, so you can see there we now have a 60 gig and a 122 gig partition. That's going to be our ISO storage and some virtual machine storage that's on the mirror on the faster disks. So we'll hit W to write that out. If we lsblk now, you'll see that we don't actually have those partitions showing up. So I'm going to just give the server a reboot, at which point those should show up nicely. Okay, so that's restarted. We can see it's pinging away nicely there, so get back onto here. Okay, and we can see all the partitions are there. So we're now going to make file system ext4 /dev/sda7. Double check that command. Yep. And A8. We'll go make directory. And I'm going to call this, I'm going in the root, local ISO, and I'm going to mount /dev/sda7 to local ISO, And we're going to nano fs tab. I'm going to add this into the file system table as well. So A7 is mounting on /local ISO. File system type is ext4. We're going defaults, no dump, and scan with second priority. Control O, Control X. Okay, so that's mounted, and df-h shows us that of the 60 gig we've got 56 available. Excellent. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is actually create some local storage for virtual machines. So we're going to, I'm just going to clear that out. So the command that we're going to use to create the local storage repository, we are pretty much going to copy and paste from the documentation. So we're not far down, but we're on xcp-ng.org /docs/storage.html. And then if you scroll down, this is talking about the different storage types that are available. But we want this first one here. So via the command line for an ext storage repository, copy that, paste it over here. We're just going to replace a few things in here. So SDA 8 is where we actually want this. It's calling it local ext. I'd actually like this to be called local RAID 1. And the host UUID, I don't know what the host UUID is, but this will tab autocomplete. So it will give you the options if there are options. We only have the one host, so as soon as I hit tab there, that's going to fill the host name in for me. So just to go through that quickly, xe space sr-create space host-uuid equals, and then the host UUID. Type is ext, content type equals user, name-label equals, and then the name that you want. If the space is in there, you need to put it in quotes. Device config equals device equals, and then /dev/sda8. Give that a few seconds. And there we go. Okay, so we're now just going to head back over to the browser, and we are now going to head to our server. You're going to see this nice welcome screen here, and there's a nice quick deploy option here for you to quickly get your Zen orchestra up and running. So first screen here is the quick deploy is asking for the host username and password. So that's the username and password on the host that we've just set up. And connect. Never, no. It's connected, so it's now asking which storage do you want to use. That's local RAID 1, so that's the one that we've literally just created. It's got 120 gig left on it. Network, we haven't really done anything with the networks yet, but we'll leave it as, oh, and there you can see he's giving ETH0. IP address, netmask, gateway, DNS, we're going to leave empty, and DNS can deal with it. DHCP. We're going to create an admin account on our XOA. Admin with a password. There we are. And we also want to set a password for the actual machine itself. So this top one here is for the web GUI, the web GUI interface. This one down here is for console access to the server. And off we go again. What it's going to do now is it's going to reach out to the internet, it's going to grab a copy of XOA, download it, provision it as a virtual machine on the server and spin it up. What we can do, just to keep an eye on what's going on, obviously you could be looking at this on the console as well in the menu interface that's there, but we can also do xe vm list. Okay, and you can see already there's the control domain, which is the actual XCP-ng server itself. That's often referred to as DOM0, and you can see that already the system has created the Xen Orchestra application, but its currently power state is halted. I've just dropped onto our PF Sense box here. This is the main router that's looking after our network traffic for us. You can see here that there's not a lot going on here at the moment. There's only me in the office. It's nearly 10:30 at night. There's nobody else stupid enough to be here. Where this is the download of XCP-ng of Xen Orchestra that's going on at the moment. So this is still going, but I've logged in here partly because it means that you can see what's going on there, but also because we can be refreshing the DHCP lease page to see when this actually picks up an IP address. 101 is our existing Xen Orchestra server, which I could have used to do some of this, but that would have been cheating. I wanted to do it from scratch. Okay, you can see that this has now gone to almost there. And as soon as it's gone to almost there, the data transfer has dropped right the way off on our internet connection. So that's basically saying it's downloaded the image. It's now just getting it up and running on the server. Let's just head back across here and just double check this. It's now running. And there we go. Whilst I wasn't watching, that's now redirected and it's taken us to the newly booted Xen Orchestra appliance. So we're going to log in with the admin username and password we just created. Okay, so now we're logged on. We've just got one last thing to do. Although we've created the partition and formatted and mounted it for our ISOs, we've still actually got to create the SR for it. So we're going to go to Home, Hosts, select our host, go to Storage, add storage. Name is going to be local ISO. Description is going to be storage for ISOs locally. Type, you see there's an ISO SR type here, and we're going to say local. If you had all of this on a SMB share or on an NFS share, which technically I do, but that's not what I'm trying to do here. So yeah, you could use those two, but we're going with local. Path is /local ISO and create. So there are no disks in here currently. What we might just do though is if we head back across here, okay, we've made an ISO there called Fred. There's nothing in it, but if we now hit rescan all disks, you can see Fred.iso 0 bytes. That would refresh after 10 minutes anyway, but you can rescan by hitting that button there. So you can now use SCP, FileZilla, whatever you want to move your ISOs into that path, hit rescan, and then when you head to new VMs, it will appear in this box here. So there you are, fred.iso. There we go. So back to the plan here. So the plan was to look at installation, so downloading, creating memory stick, installation, setting up Zen Orchestra. So I think we've pretty much got through all of that. There we go. So I'm going to knock off for the evening now. It's late. I haven't seen my children or my wife for most of the day. Thank you very much for watching. I will be back with episode 3 in the not too distant future, and we'll keep going and we'll get to the point where we have a fully working system on XCP-ng. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.